What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I am still working on some of this video stuff, specifically the audio. So if there's some bad audio moments in this, I apologize in advance. But I've been thinking a lot about how I want to move forward with this channel. One of the things I'm struggling with is my niche, right? And how I'm going to differentiate myself from other channels out there. But ultimately, I've come to the conclusion that the best thing I can do is just be authentic and be myself and share with you guys the things that I find valuable and share with you guys the things I've learned from the aquarium hobby. And one of the things I struggle with fish keeping is that we don't have a great answer for the level of self-awareness or the conscious experience that some of these animals are having. And as humans, we're quick to find enjoyment in nature and find enjoyment in these things, and it's very rewarding to keep fish and a lot of other animals as pets. But I'm not so convinced that we fully understand what that experience is for these animals. Now, on one hand, in an ideal world, you get an animal and you've done a lot of research and you know exactly the parameters that this animal needs, and you have a great setup and you have it cycled and you put them in this perfect setup and they live out the whole duration of their life expectancy. An ideal world was keeping that animal ethical. I think most people would say yes. Now, here's where I think we run into the problem with the aquarium hobby is that we cannot guarantee that. And we can't really even say that that's happening every time, right? So I know for a lot of us, first tank we set up at least, we didn't do a lot of things right. We probably lost some fish early on. I know I lost a lot of fish early on from things just like filtration. I remember just like fish that got sucked up into filters or putting fish that weren't compatible or compatible with like other invertebrates like crayfish. And I remember adding some sort of product that was supposed to remove algae that caused one of my betas to pass. And there's so many variables and there's so many things that it is very difficult for us to keep these tanks in a way that sustains an ecosystem. And even if when we do those setups, it's not just a one and done thing. Often these setups require maintenance and they require oversight. And anyone that's watching this video, I think we can all say very honestly that we have failed at that before, that we have let tanks get out of control or hadn't kept up on our water changes, or we didn't monitor the nitrates and the ammonia levels well. And a lot of us know that there's been times that we have probably lost animals that we didn't need to lose. And yeah, I don't know. This video is just me kind of experimenting with where I want to take this channel and what I want to kind of become. And I know not everyone wants to talk about this or even think about these topics. You know, this is a difficult one. I'm making a YouTube channel about keeping aquarium animals mostly and making a video about if it's ethical. And I'm not saying that it isn't yet. I'm just making an argument for a lot of the ways that we both don't understand and can't guarantee the safety of these animals or the understanding of these animals. So I guess one of the things that I wish we talked about a little bit more is the experience I like to frame it as the capacity for suffering that these animals have. And I don't know if we fully understand to be able to say what the stress feels like for keeping an animal or for keeping a fish in a tank that is too small for it, right? Or keeping it with an animal that predates it. And I think part of the answer is that not all animals are equal. They don't all have the same nervous system. They don't all have the same brain chemistry. So it might be less ethical to keep some animals and more ethical to keep others. I think there are some fish that have a greater capacity for suffering than other fish. And is it okay that some of those fish die? No, because at least I believe that life is valuable. But still, this is the broader topic of what we're talking about is, how do humans view life and how do we value life, especially in the Western society where it's sort of, the abundance of resources is available and we even have the disposable income to capture other animals, bring them into our country, and then sell them to other people, right? And the privilege that it really is to even be able to see an animal that you think about a couple hundred years ago before consumerism was really what it is now. People didn't know what animals from other continents looked like for the most part. Sometimes, there's people that were going out there. There was your Darwins that were going out there collecting specimens and bringing them back. It's not that we had no idea. We had paintings. We had people that were describing them to us. But now for example, one of the animals I keep is red-eye tree frogs. And I have them in this really awesome paludarium setup. And these frogs are just so amazing. They're so beautiful. And when their eyes open up and you see those red eyes, it is just so foreign to any sort of animal, even frogs that I have seen natively to the areas that I've visited and lived in the United States. And not only do I get to see what that animal looks like, but I have it in my home. I get to look at it whenever I want. And it really is a privilege that we get to keep a lot of these animals. But I often wonder, as people, are we maybe not abusing that privilege, but are we taking it for granted? Are we talking and being responsible enough about how we keep these animals and if we should keep these animals? Now, on the other side of this argument, and I wouldn't even call it an argument because I don't think there is even a broader conversation about this enough for there to be sides, right? But I think one of the things I would say on the pro, it is ethical to keep all aquarium animals or all animals, is conservation. And it is a beautiful thing. I think it's really unique and really exceptional that we have been able to save certain species that were most likely going to go extinct without human intervention. One of my personal favorites is the axolotl. I think I put those up there in probably the top 3 animals I've ever kept. They're just such unique and such exceptional animals. And they're so charismatic. And we pretty much saved them from the brink of extinction. The aquarium hobby brought them back to now where our numbers are. I don't know all the numbers for the stuff, right? This is really just a broader conversation that I'm trying to have. But my point is, through conservation, we've been able to bring back species and reintroduce them into ecosystems and habitats that they already resided in and restore some balance to those ecosystems. So in one way, the aquarium hobby really enables that because there's only so many facilities and labs that where, biologists and scientists would be able to preserve these species. It was really through the breeding efforts of aquarium, Aquarius. I don't know if that's what we're called. And it's a really beautiful thing that we're able to save species. Does that justify it? Were we keeping these animals to save them? I'm sure there were some people. I'm sure there was a lot of people that were doing it for that reason. Were most of us going out and getting this animal because it was super interesting and it was really exciting to see in our homes? Yeah, I would say that's probably 80% more of us. It's probably a lot of us. I know that was me. I liked that it was an endangered species and that I was maybe contributing to it, right? But at the same time, did I have some mistakes that led to me losing my axolotls? Yeah, I learned the hard way. And unfortunately, I'm not convinced that the majority of us keeping these animals are really putting into the consideration of the ethics behind keeping these animals. And this video is by no means me discouraging people from getting into this hobby. Maybe you're early into this. Maybe you just have one tank. I don't want to discourage people because, like I said a couple times already in this video, I don't think that there is an answer yet. But one of the things I'm going to try to make this channel in the future is opening up the discourse to conversations like this that I think maybe some of us are afraid of happening. Maybe some of us are afraid of having because it makes us feel some shame or some guilt over some of the animals that we haven't kept the best care of, or it makes us feel irresponsible. So I think it's important to have a community or build a community. That's what I'm going to try to do here, that is comfortable with talking about some of these things. And I make a lot of jokes in my videos. You're going to hear me make jokes about eating animals and throwing them off a bridge into a river. And I promise you, all of that is satire. At the end of the day, I put a lot of thought into, should I be keeping any of these animals? Yeah, I don't know if I did a great job articulating my thoughts in this video. It's late at night. I'm a bartender. I've worked in the service industry for the last several years of my life, so I do a lot of late night thinking. So I'm not as maybe coherent as I would like to be, or as articulate, but either way, I hope that this video encourages some of us who are starting to, engage with my content to talk about what it means to keep these animals ethical and how we can help educate each other and help support each other all in doing that a little bit better. So at the end of the day, I would love to see this hobby grow. And I think there's ways that we can help encourage people getting into this, both by teaching them and by being honest with them about where we went wrong and about where we failed. Because I remember when I first set up my first tank, it was a 10-gallon tank, and I way overstocked it. I put 2 betta fish in it. I know that's like golden rule not to do, and I did it anyways. I put 2 betta fish in it, and I put 3 neon tetras, and then I was so excited. I loved the tank. I think the next day or maybe 2 days later, I went back to the fish store and I got 3 amber tetras, and I put those in there. And I didn't really have a good gauge for tanks or cycling. I hadn't really observed a tank for months on end, years on end, to see how systems change. And then I went, I think maybe 5 days after setting up the tank, and got 2 banjo catfish. And mind you, I was doing water changes frequently early on. I knew enough to know that if you were going to do a fish end cycle, to do water changes, but I had way overstocked and I had put way too many fish in early, and I didn't have like old substrate or old filters to use to help enhance the cycling. And it was pretty crazy is that the entire community of those like 6 tetras total, I think, and 2 betta fish, and I put some shrimp and some catfish in there. They all actually thrived for quite a while. I think it was like closer to maybe 5-6 months before I lost any fish in that tank. And I put plants in it. It was a planted tank. I was doing frequent water changes and adding tannins. I was doing a lot because it was my only tank at the time. And yeah, did I get lucky in the beginning that no fish died immediately? Yeah, maybe you could say it's luck, or maybe you can look at that and be like, those fish were probably suffering in that tank. And I'm being vulnerable about this because I know that most of us have done that, and I don't want to cast the first stone here. So I am definitely guilty of malpractice, and I really just want to hear, more of you guys engage. I think one of the things I'm going to try to be careful about doing as this channel grows is begging people to subscribe and begging people to, like and share, subscribe and comment. At the end of the day, I want to monetize this so I can continue to grow what I'm doing. but at the same time, um, I want to hear what you guys think more so because I want to bounce ideas off each other's, and maybe I'll make a video in the future that is a sort of response to these comments. So, is keeping aquarium fish, is keeping crustaceans, is keeping snails, is keeping frogs ethical?